Mitch Marner to the St. Louis Blues?
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And happy Tuesday, May 20th, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about the hottest topic in the NHL. Should the St. Louis Blues sign Mitch Marner? Finally, besides Mitch, there's going to be a lot of good UFAs this year, and we need to talk about some of them because while some might be a little bit older, could also help out this team. Finally, Jordan Binnington is not going anywhere. I am seeing, different media sites from other teams putting out potential trade rumors. No, Jordan Binnington is staying here in St. Louis. No, that is such a ridiculous thing that I am reading, and I need to put an end to this. Because every single year, I feel like we see this about a potential Binnington trade, and it is not happening. And I will not, for another offseason, feed into this delusion that other people are putting out. So we're going to just put an end to that and squash all of that. Busy episode today, but obviously the hottest talking point in the NHL right now is Mitch Marner. Now, again, we watched another Toronto Maple Leafs collapse. And it is really interesting to me, right, when we talk about, game sevens, because despite the fact, in my opinion, that the Blues did end up losing that game 7 to the Winnipeg Jets, it was still a really entertaining game. And I feel like that Leafs and Panthers game was the complete opposite. I mean, Florida had total domination early on, and the Leafs, they do what they always do, and they collapse. So again, for me, I found it just a little bit ironic because you could see the frustration on the ice from Mitch Marner, but what was he doing? And it's important for me to bring that up because in the regular season, you could accumulate over 100 points and you could still be a phenomenal regular season player. And I am not taking that away from Marner in any type of way. But when it comes to the playoffs and you're not producing the same way, and you're yelling at your teammates and you're frustrated, why do we want that here in St. Louis? Now, again, would having him be on the, let's go say hypothetically, if money wasn't a thing, we'll talk about the money. Money wasn't a thing. Would the Blues be a better team with him on it? Yeah, absolutely. For $14 million a year, would the Blues be a better team with him on it? No, because that means the Blues would have to make some decisions about some other players, and that's where it gets tricky. I think that there is a sense of putting Mitch Marner on a podium. Again, not taking away anything that he has done, but it's not like he's a Connor McDavid who shows you that he can be successful in the playoffs. While I know McDavid hasn't won a cup yet, he still plays well enough in the playoffs. It's really funny to me because people put Mitch Marner on such a pedestal. And personally, I think the Blues don't need him. I'm not saying in any type of way that he is a bad player, and I'm not trying to put that down, but it would have to be cheap. It would have to be very cheap in order for this to happen. I mean, right now he is 27 years old and, again, he's making almost $11 million now per year with Toronto, right? Do I think the Blues are in need of a winger? No. We talked about it. It's defense and the center issue that we have. I think, and again, we have a great player that plays wing like a Jordan Kyrou. And the reason why I bring up Kyrou and Bushi and some of these other guys and neighbors, Snuggie even, is because the Blues have what they need. I just don't see Mitch Marner going for anything less than 13.5 to 14 million. And the question then comes, does he want to win the cup or does he want to get paid? I think he wants to get paid. And again, Am I saying that for the right price? Like if it was 10 to 11 million, kind of like probably what he's making now, like 11 million, let's go say. Would I then consider it? Absolutely. But he's not going to want that. And that extra couple million is going to take away from other potential moves that the Blues could do, right? The Blues are not a desperate team, especially when it comes to their forwards. They're not desperate. And maybe Mitch is going to try to go to a contending team, well, more so cup contending team, right? We were a playoff contending team, but maybe he would want to go to a Carolina or a Florida or probably not another Canadian team if we're being honest, actually. But I just don't see him or Dallas. But again, it's money, and that's what it comes down to. And would he be willing to take a pay cut to win the cup? I don't think so. And I asked you all on Locked On Blues because I knew I was going to have to make this episode, right? Like I knew it because every single conversation is Mitch Marner, where is he going to go? Is he going to come back? I just never thought he would go to the Blues. Today he had a presser and he said, I loved my time in Toronto, which is past presence, right? And past tense. And I just don't see him coming here. I think the Blues are not even like probably on a range for him. And again, like I know how this goes. Everybody is going to be talking about it. But when you only score 13 goals, and I know he's had a lot of assists in the playoffs, but when you only score 13 goals in like your 70 something playoff games, 70, no, not 70 something at all. I have to look at the math. The point is he's not coming here. So anyways, I asked you on Twitter again, like this is how like disconnected I am from him coming here. I said Marner to the Blues, yes or no? Ryan said no. Barack said pass, use the money to get a good UFA defenseman. And that is exactly what I have been saying. That's why I want to talk about the free agency too, because this is what I have been saying since day one of this offseason, which was a couple weeks ago, that the Blues need to get a good defenseman. Stop worrying about the offense and start worrying about your defense, honestly, that lacks a lot of talent. Anyways, Lou says prima donna, so no thanks. I don't know how he is in the locker room. I haven't talked to him ever. I've been in the Toronto locker room before with other players. But again, I don't want to make that assumption about him. But, there's rumors. Spaghetti says we don't need him. Abe says please no. X says absolutely not. He's anti-clutch. Jordan said I'm not a Leafs fan, so I don't want expensive players that disappear in the playoffs. Eddie said he would have to be cheap, then heck yeah. Dan said, I would be good with it. They need another finisher, but he is not a finisher. I'm sorry. And again, Sean said not for 14 million. And Jacob said he's not going to get the money he wants from us. Scott said not for almost double what Kyer's contract is. It would be stupid. And I agree. And I am shutting that down. I think that if anybody that is a Blues fan that wants Mitch Marner, you need to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, do you want him because of the popularity that would come from getting him, or from how he actually plays when it matters in the playoffs? Because, the answer is really simple. He's not going to give you what you need in the playoffs. He's not. Regular season, sure. But again, he's 27 years old, and I'm not trying to say that he's old, but he's old enough to produce a little bit more when it actually matters. So again, whatever team will get him, they're going to get an overplayed player that's not going to probably produce in the playoffs. And again, I'm not trying to be a hater because I guess you could say the same thing about some of our guys, but none of our guys are being labeled as a superstar, right? Besides Binnington, and he always performs, even though in my opinion, Robert Thomas. But again, our guys show up. Bush Davis showed up more than Mitch Marner. But no one's ready to have that conversation because everybody likes to hate on Bushy. Anyways, hi. We're going to talk about some realistic options that the Blues could get in free agency. because we need some defensemen. And we kind of need it like ASAP Ferg. But first, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or I just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell, their satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are the classic favorite. It is the best. I promise you that. So this is what you need to do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Free agency is looming. We're not there yet, but it's looming. And I think it's really important for us to kind of just maybe take a little look, a little gander, a little gaze at some of the defensemen. Ivan Provorov, I have talked to you about Provorov before. Right now, he's 28 years old, and he is making about $6.7 million a year. And it's funny. So, total transparency, I have covered Ivan Provorov with his time here in Philadelphia. I have covered him. Some of my first one-on-one interviews were with Provorov. And what I can tell you about Ivan Provorov is, and again, like, I think like his whole entire career here, I've like almost like basically covered him, but he works so hard and he will give you full effort day in, day out. Like there is no doubt about that. And his skill set, it's not being showcased in Columbus just because I don't think that Columbus is, I mean, they played fine this year, right? But again, it's just one of those teams where I feel like it's not going to really show the actual skill that he has. He shoots left. And again, don't forget, he was a 2015 7th overall draft pick, and he does have a lot of value. So, I mean, in his career, right, he has played 696 games, 77 goals, 205 assists, and a lot of penalty minutes. Okay, like give and take. But anyways, this season, though, what I found interesting was while he didn't score that many goals, he had 7 goals. He did have 26 assists, and he still was plus 11, which I thought, in my opinion, was good. But Provorov's never going to put up a lot of goals. Now, I remember this back in 2017, 2018. Provorov put up 17 goals, which was the most ever in his career. Actually getting the most points in his career that year with 24 assists. He was an all-star that year, and he played excellent hockey. But Provorov usually averages anywhere between 23 to 25 minutes on the ice. And when I'm looking at our defense, right, again, if you watch Locked On Blues, you already know that maybe I have already counted out Folk and Letty, just putting it out there. That's who I've counted out. And I feel like you could fit Ivan Provorov in the second pair. And again, like he can actually play on both sides. And that's what makes him so, in my opinion, worth the money, because you could put him anywhere and he would be able to adjust even on his offside. So again, I feel like having like a Broberg and Provorov pair would actually be really beneficial. Provorov is also great on the power play and he's great on the PK. So again, like if you want a player that you can get for about $6.5 million for a couple of years, maybe. So, I mean, again, that's AAV, but again, I think that he would be a really great fit. And while he is 28, that's okay because clearly the Blues see potential in some of the older defensemen as they have Ryan Suter, who is 40 years old. So again, I am a big Provorov fan of his time when I watched him play, and that is why I feel like he would be successful. Now, if you want to go a little bit older, right, you could go Aaron Ekblad, right? But here's the thing. $7.5 million is a lot. See, Provorov was a little bit higher, but I feel like he can give you a lot more. But this is the problem. You have Dante Fabro, right? $2.5 million, but he's not going to give you what Provorov can. And that is the issue, right? Is that right now you need defensemen that are going to actually be able to generate. And I crack up. I crack up a lot, actually, because when we're looking at, just positional players, right, and we're looking specifically at the defensive core, I have a really hard time, honestly, sometimes being able to look at some of these defensemen and say, yeah, they could be successful. I mean, Brett Burns, as I said, I'm a huge fan of him, but he's 40. Like, he's not going to be going anywhere. Now, an interesting one would be, and I don't think they're going to do this, Evan Bouchard from the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, he's 25, shoots right, actually, which I like a lot. And right now he's almost at 4 million AAV. So they could. I talked about Keandre Miller time and time again. I'm going to die on that hill. I don't think it's going to happen. You have Ryan Lindgren, like Jeff, but like those guys just seem so unrealistic to me sometimes. Luke Hughes, could you imagine? I don't think Luke Hughes is the option. You need someone that's a little bit older now. Cody Ceci could be an interesting one. Now, Cody Ceci is 31, but again, you would get him for about 3.1-ish, maybe at 3. So I could see that being a factor, maybe. Cam York is another player right now that is kind of not saying that he's going to be gone, but just interesting, right? John Klingberg. Now, again, 32 older, but would it be – this is the thing about the Blues need. You basically have 2 positions, right, that you need filled. Scott Perunovich, bring him back. No, I'm joking. Could you imagine Scotty B coming back? Oh, man. But, like, there's just so many players like P.O. is going to be – but, like, that's not obviously happening. But I'm going to say what I said, and I'm going to stick with Provorov. I still think that he would be the best fit for this team. And, again, there is a lot that the Blues need to figure out. I just don't see them signing a guy for more than $7 million AAV. I just don't see them doing that. And again, if you sign a guy like Provorov, right, you're kind of stuck because you don't really want to sign somebody else for so much money. So then you would maybe have to sign a guy that's not going to be as costly. And again, this is where a player like a Cam York, who's making 1.6, could be interesting. A John Klingberg, right, who's making 1.7 million right now, or a Luke Hughes. Like, I'm just saying that maybe you could go down the route of signing a multitude of guys that cost a lot less money than 6.5. It's interesting, right? Because we determine players based off of maybe how much they make sometimes when we're looking at free agency. But I do believe that there are so many underrated players that maybe are not getting paid the most amount of money because they haven't been on the right team. Which is why, again, when we're talking about a guy like a Mitch Marner, and I know we're kind of backtracking just a little bit, what makes him worth $14 million? And I want you to just think about that. What makes a player like him $14 million? What makes a player $1.6 million? Or what makes a player $6.5 million? When I listed out all of the reasons why Ivan Provorov would be beneficial for this Blues team, I gave you a $6.5 million answer as to why. Great on special teams, can play on both sides. And again, I'm not trying to put any other player down, but there's some players that just can't simply do that maybe aren't beneficial when it comes to playing on the power play or the PK. And we had our guy, Torrey Krug, and he obviously got hurt. So right now you need to find that. But do I trust a Nicoletti or a Justin Folk to come back? No. I don't think their presence on the ice was helpful. I think that right now the Blues are in a situation where they know their weak spot. Giving up last-minute goals happened 17 times in the regular season. But most importantly, it happened in a Game 7 that caused the Blues to get eliminated with 1.6 seconds left to tie up the game, which led to double OT. Listen, I know what happened, and it is a problem. And then you have Doug Armstrong jokingly saying, and I love Doug EA, but he was like, yeah, by next December, if it's not fixed, there's going to be an issue. No, Doug, there is already an issue. When it happened to you 17 times in the regular season and was the key pivotal moment as to why your team got eliminated from the playoffs, you need to address it. And it all starts with having a solid defensive core. There's only so much that Jordan Binnington can do. And I think he is a great goalie. and a goalie that won't be going anywhere, which brings me to my next point. Binnington isn't going anywhere. Now, how is that for a segue? But before I completely segue, I just want to let you know to subscribe to Locked On Blues here on YouTube, at Locked On Blues, on Twitter at Locked On Blues, or my own Twitter at Haley T. Simon. Listen, it's been a couple of years now doing this podcast, and I feel like I have been saying the same thing every single off season. Why are we coming up with rumors that Jordan Binnington will be going to other teams? I just want you to think about that for a minute. Why would the Blues try to trade away Jordan Binnington, who is their best player, who still has a couple years left of his contract? Why would they trade him away when they made the playoffs with him this year? We didn't see Joel Hofer in any of the playoff games because we didn't need to pull Binnington, unlike another team. No, but you get what I'm saying? Why would you trust then Joel Hofer? And I'm not trying to disown Joel Hofer because I actually thought he had a good season. But why are you then trusting him to make the same kind of stops that Binnington made in the playoffs? For what? And I have said this time and time again. If you listen to yesterday's episode with Nick and I, you would know my stance on this. I think goalies are the most important player in playoff hockey. I just actually did a squad show for the NHL network of the Locked On Podcast Network. And I said it again, that goalies are the most important player in playoff hockey. While scoring is important, and that is a key to success, and there is no denying that. You look at the goalies now that are left, right? You look at a Bob, at Jake Ottinger. You look at an Anderson, which is so weird that, right, he's not on the Leafs. Like, that's like mind-blowing sometimes. I'm like, oh, I'm like, yeah, that did happen. And then obviously a Stuart Skinner, right? You look at all of those goalies, and they're all such great goalies, but they kept their team in the game. When you were coming up with rumors, not you specifically, but when you're maybe reading the rumors that people are coming up with, and you think, maybe that could work. No, it is not going to work because Joel Hofer is not there yet. He is not a Jordan Binnington. And I think it's a really stupid thing that and I hate to call people's opinions stupid, but when I'm reading these articles, right, there's been many, I'm not going to call out by who, that's not, I'm a journalist too. I get it. I write a bunch of articles. But when you are trying to get clicks, and I call it clickbait, and you're trying to get engagement, you should maybe try, and this is just my opinion, to not go with the same narrative that the Blues are going to get rid of Jordan Binnington for a mediocre forward or defenseman that your team has for a draft pick. Because if you know anything about St. Louis hockey right now, the Blues are really not counting on the draft picks at the moment because, again, they were a playoff team, okay? It just blows my mind. Like, the Blues are not trying to tank. So when some of these teams are like, oh, well, our team needs a goalie and Jordan Binnington would be a great fit and the Blues could benefit from having a high draft pick. We have a lot of great prospects right now that are developing. So again, I'm not trying to be hard. I'm not trying to be critical, but sometimes I just laugh because it's such an easy way to get people to read into it and then panic. And then it's my job as the host of Locked On Blues to tell you that the Blues are not going to get rid of Jordan Binnington. Nobody, and I've talked to a lot of professionals in this industry, thinks that's going to happen this offseason because I'll send them this stuff and I'm like, guys, are you kidding me? No. I've been writing some Blues articles now for a site, right? I know, like, again, live, love hockey. And like, that was not one of the issues that the Blues needed to address. Like, there's no reason if they're somehow going to get rid of Letty and Folk, like, there's no reason to get rid of Jordan Binnington. Like, that's a crazy statement to make. And I think it just needs to be addressed. And if you want to come up with players that actually could be an asset to another team that the Blues would be okay getting rid of. Not a Jordan Binnington. There's a couple players. There's two players on the Blues that I could never see going away. a Robert Thomas and a Jordan Binnington. And I have said that multiple times. So if you want to write an article and get your clicks in, maybe you can say St. Louis Blues is forward, maybe put in a Jake Neighbors, anything other than a Jordan Binnington, because it makes you, honestly, and I'm not trying to be rude, but it makes me question, why are you writing about the Blues when you don't cover the Blues, you don't pay attention to the Blues, but yet you're so cool with being able to throw away the name of a goalie that the organization is not getting rid of. And I said this before, maybe in his last year of his contract, but he's not there yet. It gets me really ticked off because I know why those articles are being made. And again, do some research before you begin writing. That's all I'm going to say. All right, I will talk to you all on tomorrow's episode. And like always, let's go Blues.